Hey, what's going on, Black people? Welcome to drboystv.com, the home for intelligent Black people. Today, I saw something in Black Enterprise about Chuck D from Public Enemy, who's a very smart brother. Um, he made some comments about R. Kelly that really caused a lot of controversy. A lot of people got mad at him for what he had to say. Now, I want to make it clear I'm not mad at Chuck D. I think Chuck D is a smart guy. I think he's an honest guy and an ethical guy. And so I want to start off the conversation there. I also can say that, I find it fascinating that the whole world is kind of, you know, doing what they're doing right now with R. Kelly. I was a person that probably about 21 years ago, when the first tape started coming out, I was the guy who said, why are we still listening to R. Kelly music? I never understood that. I kind of felt like R. Kelly needed something other than more fame and more fortune and more women and more money and more of the spoils that come with being rich. And so I saw Chuck D's comment, and I don't know if y'all saw it or not, but I'm going to read the comment to y'all, and I want to get your take on this. So let me ask you this before we begin housekeeping. Can you all hear me? Give me a yes if you can hear me. I hope you can hear me okay. I was speaking earlier, and it was going in and out, and I felt really bad because the audio was kind of fucked up, and it was my apology for that. Let me give me a yes if you guys can hear me. I'm going to switch my screen. I'm going to read to you what Chuck D said. I'm just going to say right now. Look, I'm not here to bash Chuck D. I'm not here to do. I can't. I'm not interested in defending R. Kelly. That's a hard job. Now mind you, really good legal experts will say everybody deserves a defense. Even the worst people, even the people that are convicted of the most heinous crimes, deserve a defense because everybody has rights, and that's the best test of whether or not you're a good legal expert or a good attorney is, can you defend somebody who probably did something wrong, and defend their rights. And I think that when you talk about a crime against a child or any child, or any type of thing against children, it's a problem. I got a lot to say about that, but I'm not going to dig into that too much. Hit the thumbs up button. I'm going to read this comment to you, and then I'm going to kind of break down some of what I see Chuck D trying to say with this. And again, I'm not here. The Twitterverse might be mad at Chuck D, but I ain't mad at Chuck D. I know Chuck D, and I like him. I sat and talked to the brother for a long time, about 10 years ago, at an event Al Sharpton had, and I just thought he was, a decent dude. So Chuck D's latest attempt to fight the power wasn't well received by the Twitter community after he seemingly attempted to defend R. Kelly. The Public Enemy frontman let his Twitter fingers fly in response to R. Kelly's guilty verdict on Tuesday. Chuck D appeared to speak out against the 10-year prison sentence the disgraced singer could be facing. While comparing Kelly's case to past cases involving Ike Turner and Rick James, Chuck D seemingly suggested that the two late musicians came out of jail changed men and receiving short sentences. So this is according to Black Enterprise. I'm reading from Black Enterprise. So here's what Chuck said. Chuck said, abused in his youth, an addict as an adult, Ike Turner served 18 months in prison. Rick James did similar time. Ike came out a changed, positive human being. Chuck tweeted, how long should R. Kelly spend in prison? And does a USA system give a man a chance, or give a man a chance for a man to change his world around? It's not a sympathetic question, not at all, not the least, he said in a follow-up tweet. Now, I don't have a problem with what Chuck said. How many of y'all, give me a yes if you think Chuck, what he said was fine. Give me a no if you think it was unacceptable. Give me one word to describe what you feel about Chuck D's tweet about R. Kelly, because I'll give you my take on it. I kind of want to get a sense of what you guys think, because I think I think these are important conversations that our community needs to have, because when we're talking about children and serious crimes and people that are, that appear to be predators, that's something that, I think needs to be talked about. And I personally feel that in our community, we don't do enough of a job to protect our kids against predators. And it ain't just the men's fault in terms of all this. It's not just the men. I hear a lot of people say, well, the black men don't protect the children. Black men don't protect black women. Well, there's a lot of black men who do protect black women, but then there's black women who shoo those men away, who disrespect those men, who don't want protection, who think they can do it all by themselves and all that. And, one of the things that I can say to you is, typically guys like R. Kelly, they tend to thrive in communities that don't have fathers that are protecting the daughters. I'm not saying that all these girls that he got with didn't have daddies. Some of them had daddies. Maybe they had weak daddies, or daddies that just wasn't paying attention, or maybe daddies that wanted their daughters to be famous. You can't tell me that those girls wouldn't be delivered to R. Kelly. There's some people who would do crazy things in order to get fame. This is documented. This is proven. This is not speculation, right? He didn't have to steal those kids. They were handed to him in some cases. Like that one family on that documentary that said that they took their daughter backstage at an R. Kelly concert in 2013. Who the hell takes their 17-year-old daughter backstage with R. Kelly in 2013? Everybody knew by 2013 that you didn't want your daughter nowhere near R. Kelly. So if you took your daughter backstage to meet R. Kelly and you wanted R. Kelly to mentor your daughter, then that tells me that you were so hungry for the fame and the fortune that you just didn't give a shit. I don't have a lot of sympathy for parents that did things like that. I have sympathy for the kids, of course, but not for the parents. And I think another thing that's overlooked in these conversations about the R. Kellys of the world. Sure, if you want me to sit here and tell you that I think R. Kelly's a good guy, I'm not that dude. I'm just not. I mean, he deserves certain rights and he should be defended in specific ways. And there's more to talk about, and I'll address it quickly. But I'm not in the defending R. Kelly business. That's not fun for me. There's better people. I'd rather defend. I'd rather defend like a hardworking black man who's taking care of his kids or whatever than this dude, right? But the thing about it is that when you're really talking about what's happening to the kids, one thing people don't talk about is how our children are sexualized at an early age. If you listen to some of the music, if you got your daughter at 8 years old listening to Cardi B teaching her how to suck a penis, well, then that little girl's going to get about 12, 13 years old and she's going to start. Don't be surprised if she starts, sucking penises. Because she's been listening to rappers tell her that women's empowerment means using your WAP at every available opportunity and learning sexual tricks that should be preserved for grown-ups. Right. We created R. Kelly. The whole community created this dude. It's not just him. And I think it's very important to understand that you cannot disconnect yourself. Even that R. Kelly documentary, that was done by Dream Hampton. And I can tell you, I would love to see somebody do a documentary on Dream Hampton, because the only reason I knew about Dream Hampton was because Dream Hampton herself had a real shady reputation. I'm not going to say more than that, but I will say that I remember if you'd asked me about her, I'd be like, I don't think I want to hang out with her because I've heard too many awkward stories about her. Right. So where am I going with this? Where I'm going at is R. Kelly is like a simple conversation, but it's a complex conversation. Right. And the reason I like Chuck D is because Chuck D is a complex guy. He sees the nuances, right? He's not sitting here saying, "Oh yeah, R. Kelly is a model citizen. We should act like nothing happened." I think what he's saying basically, he's questioning a lot of things. He's in particular he's questioning the criminal justice system and what's the purpose of crime and punishment. And also, I'm gonna extrapolate on what Chuck said and take a liberty with it and say, when I read what he said, I was thinking about the fact that we have a society that sees no pathway for redemption for a black man. That imagine if R. Kelly was a white woman. Like, imagine that for a second. I want you to take a second and imagine if R. Kelly was a white woman who was accused of sleeping with, a lot of dudes. Hey, let's say she didn't just sleep with some dudes that were 13, 14 years old, right? That's bad. She would go to jail for that. But let's say that she was also sleeping with grown men. And these grown men all came back and said, she manipulated us. She put us in the house and told us we couldn't leave and played mind games with us and told us, and manipulated our feeble little brains to make us feel like we couldn't leave the relationship. And it felt so abusive. And people were trying to send her to jail for that. Right? Imagine that. Would they send a white woman to jail for that stuff? Now, the stuff with the kids, absolutely. That makes more sense. And I think there is something to say about that. But I separate those two, right? And when I was watching the Dream Hampton documentary, I was really kind of asking myself, I don't know, did anybody else kind of think this? I was really like, wait a minute, aren't you 35 years old? Like, one of the ladies on there was like in her 30s. And I get that, right? I understand abuse happens and all that, but it's confusing to me as a man who believes in the power of women to hear you tell me that women's brains are so feeble that that even if you tell them they can leave the house, they can't. They get so scared they won't leave the house. Or even if you tell them that they're free to go, they can still say, well, I really wasn't free to go. You just told me I was free to go, but I really wasn't. So that makes you the same as a kidnapper. That makes you an abuser, right? So I think that the R. Kelly documentary was really interesting because, you knew that there was kind of this agenda, and I'm not necessarily one to fight that agenda, because I remember back in 2002, 2003, when R. Kelly was originally in trouble for some tapes or whatever that they found. I remember thinking, why are we still acting like this dude didn't do anything? Right? Why are we just, moving forward because Step in the Name of Love is such a great song and he's so talented. Yeah, he can sing his ass off. I mean, the man, I personally think it's okay to enjoy Chuck's music. I'm sorry, not Chuck. I'm sorry, Chuck too, but R. Kelly, I think it's okay to enjoy his music. R. Kelly is probably one of the most talented artist in history. He's iconic as a performer, right? And I think it's okay to acknowledge that and to separate the art from the music. Like I think DL Hughley said it on CNN, and I agree with him. This is one of those areas where I agree with DL. That if that why can't you listen to R. Kelly's music despite what he allegedly did or was guilty of? Because we listened to the Star Spangled Banner knowing what America did, right? We know what America did. America did a whole lot more than R. Kelly, but we still honor America and listen to the Star Spangled Banner and all this other stuff. So why can't we watch the Cosby Show or listen to an R. Kelly song, particularly given that R. Kelly is a damn good artist? If you want to know my deep seated opinion about R. Kelly, I honestly feel sorry for the guy, not because he's going to jail. I don't feel sorry for him for what's going on. I believe in accountability. I believe chickens come home to roost. You take accountability for what you did. The man was doing a little bit too much. But the reason I feel sorry for R. Kelly is because, you know, again, and we do this for white women all the time. Like women can come back and say, the reason I killed him is because I was abused, or the reason I was on drugs is because I was abandoned by my daddy when I was a baby. The reason I did this terrible thing was because I was in an abusive relationship. Women can say that all day. Men don't have that liberty. Men are held accountable for everything they do. Even a man who's 14, 15 years old is still held accountable in a certain way. If I'd killed somebody at 14, they would have sent me to prison, to little boys prison until I turned 18, when they would have sent me to grown man prison. That's what happens with your boy. So you don't get that same liberty to say, I only did these things because I was abused. But if you look at R. Kelly's history, you can see where that guy has really had a crazy rough life. And then he was cursed in another way. He was cursed with fame and power, fame, wealth, and power. I've mentioned this to you guys before, but I encourage you to watch this movie. There's a movie called Dorian Gray. Dorian Gray, Dorian. In the movie Dorian Gray, it takes place in 19th century England, and it's about a young guy, a young white boy who's like a goody two shoes. He loves his fiance. He stays out of trouble. He comes home on time every night, does everything he's supposed to do. Well, one day, one of his friends says, "Hey, why don't you go with me to the whorehouse? Go and we can go smoke some opium." That's what they did back then. And we're gonna go get some hookers and have a little fun. And his friend's like, "Nah, I don't want to do that." He's like, "No, come on, just try it once, right?" So he goes with his friend to the whorehouse and they smoke opium, and it's like an unbelievable experience. That's why I don't mess with drugs. That's why I would encourage you, if you haven't tried drugs and alcohol, don't mess with it, because whatever they got in that bottle, it must feel real good. I remember figuring that out when I was little. And I was looking at some of my cousins and uncles, and I saw what alcohol and drugs did to them. I said, I ain't touching none of that shit. Drugs probably took at least $10 trillion worth of black wealth out of our community, because of all the families that could have been making millions running businesses together. You can't do it because your cousin's gonna steal your money, or your parents abandon you, and all these other horrible things that happen because of drugs. So I never mess with drugs for that reason. So anyway, he tried the drug and it was like amazing, and he had the women and all that. So he ends up making a deal with the devil, and the deal with the devil is that he gets to be kind of where R. Kelly is, right? He got to be in a place where he was incredibly handsome to women. Like, women were found him irresistible. He had all the money he wanted. He had all the power he wanted. And what happened was the devil put his soul inside a painting. So he stayed young and perfect. Like 50 years later, he still looked like a 30-year-old. He still had all the women. He was 90, 100 years old, still had all the women, had all the money, had all the power. And everything he did gave him like a high, right? Like you have sex with two women, it's like a high. Then you want to have sex with five. Then he started sleeping with animals and men and killing people and all these things that gave him a high. And every time he did it, it corrupted his soul. His soul got a little more poison every time he did something that gave him that next high. It's called Dorian Gray. And so at the end, his soul becomes so poisoned and toxic and corrupted that he starts to really hate himself. He hates what he's become, you know. And I think about Dorian Gray when I look at the life of R. Kelly. R. Kelly was a guy who did not need fame. He needed a goddamn therapist. R. Kelly did not need more money in his pocket. He needed somebody that's going to sit his ass down and straighten him out. He didn't need more women in his Jeep. He needed to sit down with Louis Farrakhan so he could get on the straight and narrow before these white folks got a hold of his ass. R. Kelly didn't need a bunch of yes men around him telling him that everything goes and he can have whatever he wants. R. Kelly needed somebody who could say, no, Negro, what are you doing? You're going to get yourself locked up. Your children are going to be embarrassed by you. And there is a curse that comes with getting everything you want. Any man, I'm just telling y'all straight up, and I understand this a little bit. I imagine Chuck D can understand this. He could probably relate. A lot of guys can relate. Any man who has like fame or money or power, you have to be really careful because that stuff can corrupt your soul. Has anybody ever been around a person who was spoiled, where they got everything they wanted? You know, like anything they ask for, they got it. Maybe a real pretty girl who knows she's pretty and knows it. If she just, shows a little ass or whatever, she can get whatever she wants. Or a guy where all the women are falling at his feet, so he don't have to work. He don't have to do any work for any relationship because everything he wants, he gets it. Sometimes if people have that and they don't have a balance in their spirit, if their spirit's not balanced, if they don't know how to operate on a higher vibrational frequency, that person becomes a complete mess. That person becomes a mess. It's like dealing with a drug addict who's also an alcoholic who likes to kill people, who rapes and steals and just does whatever they want because nobody's ever told them no. So R. Kelly and a lot of celebrities go through this. He's not the only one. I mean, remember, pay attention now. Y'all don't know how to go back and look at the receipts. See, I see the big picture. A lot of celebrities that are mainstream that y'all know of, household names, used to be real cool with R. Kelly. Used to love to party with R. Kelly. Went on tour with R. Kelly. Hung out with R. Kelly. I mean, if he's the black what's that guy, Jeffrey Epstein? He's the black Jeffrey Epstein because he could go and tell a lot of stories about a lot of people that y'all think are completely innocent. But I'm gonna tell you, some of these men, all other men, have corrupted souls too, and have done some things that they are praying to white Jesus, black Jesus, and baby Jesus that nobody ever finds out. So don't think R. Kelly's the only one. There's a lot of people, men and women too, who have done some things that they would not want announced on CNN. So with that being said, here's the deal. Do me a favor, if you could, please hit the thumbs up button, hit the thumbs up, share, subscribe button. Also tonight, don't forget, Dr. Claude Anderson is joining me for our book club. We're reading Dr. Anderson's books. Right now we're reading Black Labor, White Wealth. If you want to join the book club for free, go to blackkeystogreatness.com. You also get free access to my life class and blackkeystogreatness.com. The URL's on the screen. Please hit the thumbs up button. Please hit the thumbs up, share, subscribe button. With R. Kelly, I think that what Chuck is arguing is something that is difficult to argue, and which is why I applaud his courage. Because remember, Chuck D didn't do nothing wrong. All he did was ask a question and make a point. I think that when you're talking about a man like R. Kelly, the question is there any path whatsoever for redemption? Is there any limit to what you would consider to be an appropriate punishment? If somebody said, we want to give him 10 million years in prison, is that okay? Or can somebody say, you know what, let's put him through complete hell. Let's strip away all his money. He don't need all that money. He don't need the money. He don't need the fame. He don't need the entourage. He needs to get in a space with somebody that's going to cleanse his goddamn soul. R. Kelly's soul is cursed. It is toxic because he has been allowed to basically let his endorphins run wild by having pretty much anything he wants, any woman he wants. And I saw this, literally saw this. I remember seeing this 20 years ago. Because the thing is, you created R. Kelly. Because this Negro could sing, you were prepared to give him whatever. I bet there's ladies right here in this chat right now who would have fucked R. Kelly if you had the chance. Seriously, no questions asked. R. Kelly came to my house. He's tall, he's handsome, he sings his ass off, and he got money. Girl, girl, that's a good catch, girl. Right? Come on now. Y'all know what I'm talking about. If you wouldn't have done it, you know somebody who would. Come on, let's be honest. So the question becomes, when you have a man who's getting everything that he wants, and you're pouring into that, right? You're honoring and celebrating him. Why? Well, because white people put him on the radio and made him famous because he does have talent, no question about it. But he's not the only talented person out there. There's a lot of unfamous guys who are talented too. you feel that anything goes, everything's okay, that he's a great man because he's a great performer. And I don't think any of these people around him really cared that much about him. But also, I don't think he really had anybody around him who had the desire or the ability to say, "Look, man, come on, Robert, chill out, Robert. Have some balance, Robert. Okay, you can have 2, 3 girlfriends, Robert. That's cool, but you ain't got to be doing some of this crazy stuff that you're doing because that's going to catch up with you." And this is also a warning to men. When I chose to get married, I got a lot of flack from guys in the so-called manosphere. I don't know what the fuck that is. I don't care. If you're a real man, you don't worry about that stuff. But a lot of guys didn't understand. They were like, "Boys, you could have had women everywhere. You could have did this. You could have did that." And I know what they saw. They saw that I have a little bit of money. They were all reciting my net worth on the internet. I think they threw some number out there on celebrity net worth. They felt like because I have a little bit of money, I'm supposed to live an immature life. They felt that because I have a little bit of power and status and money, not at that R. Kelly level, but it's there, right? I've seen it. That I'm supposed to indulge in everything that's there. And the thing about it is that when a man becomes wise about the world, he understands that just because the candy is in the shop and they hand it to you, that doesn't mean you got to eat it all. Right? Just because you can have more chocolate cake don't mean you need to eat more chocolate cake. Because if you eat more chocolate cake every time they offer you chocolate cake, you're going to become obese, you're going to get diabetes, and you're going to die. And so maybe the appropriate approach is, take a bite of the chocolate cake, right? We all live our lives, we all have fun, right? I've done some fun stuff in my life, not just, with women, but just in general, like just cool stuff that comes with so-called success, right? But one of the things that I can tell you is that if you're not trained to have some sort of balance and discipline as a man, that shit will lead to your downfall. Like, no man, listen, this tell this to your sons. If you have a son, please tell your son this. Play this part of the video for him. Um, a man who has power without sexual discipline will almost always crash and burn. If you have power and money and you don't have sexual discipline on some level, the world is going to catch up with you. You are like that song. Remember that song? Hey, little Walter, something's gonna get you, little Walter. And there's a whole lot of little Walters out here. And I'm gonna tell you, you think you can get away with everything, but you ain't gonna get away with it forever. At some point, it's gonna catch up with you. And I think that there was probably a time in R. Kelly's life, maybe 20 years ago, where he thought it was never gonna catch up with him. He thought, ain't nobody gonna catch up with the women. I'm R. Kelly. I can do what I want. You come talk bad about me, I'll send my goons to threaten to kill you. I got money, I got lawyers, I got famous friends or whatever. And now look at him. Now this poor guy, I mean, you can see it on his face. Like when he goes to court, man, he looks so sad. He just looks like like he just lost everything. And I think the only thing worse than losing everything is like when you have it all and you lose everything. Like if you had nothing and you end up with nothing, that's bad, but not as bad as having it all and then ended up with nothing. I think that's a whole nother level of trauma. And I would be surprised if R. Kelly ends up clocking out, if y'all know what I mean. I'm not gonna say it like that because I ain't putting it out there. But I wouldn't be surprised if he's clocked out or tried to clock out. Because he's got a lot of problems that he's created for himself over the years through bad choices. And so what I really wish for R. Kelly, if he was like my relative or something, I really wish he never would have been discovered in the first place. Like I really wish he would have been better off to have a normal life that required discipline. Maybe have relationships with women where it was required that he actually do the work to have healthy relationships with women. I wish he wasn't spoiled by the money and the fame and had all these yes men around him. I wish somebody could have sat there with him and got in his ass and said, you can't do this. I wish he had a father that mentored him. That's another important point. A lot of y'all act like fathers don't matter, but I'm telling you, a good father, a good strong father is a person who talks some sense into your ass when you start doing stupid stuff. If all you got is your mama nagging you, a lot of boys listen right through that. They don't even hear that. But if they got a man around that they respect, they'll listen to that. They'll at least consider what he had to say, right? And so because I know that's happened in my life when I got carried away with stuff. My father would be the one to bring me back to earth. Those fathers are extremely important, and it's not just for humans. It's actually true for even animals like elephants and rhinoceroses. When the older male role models are not present, the behavior of the animals actually changes. I don't know if y'all know that or not, but with elephants, they found that when they didn't have fathers, they behaved very differently than when they had male role models around. So R. Kelly, I believe, is that's another area where I believe he was victimized. He didn't have a father, and I wish he'd had one, because I think his father would have been the guy to say, okay, this can take you to some bad places, son. You need to think about what you're doing. So does R. Kelly deserve to go to prison? Absolutely. I think the debatable issue that Chuck D was bringing up, in my view, is how long should he go to prison? Like, and what should be the goal of prison? Is the goal just to make sure a person suffers as much as possible? I don't think that should be the goal. I think the goal should be to make society better and safer, which means that in addition to making people pay a price for their crimes, you must incorporate rehabilitation so that when that individual comes out, you're not just shitting on the Black community again by dumping a person on the community that has significant mental illness because you've allowed them to endure significant amounts of trauma while they were in prison. People make jokes about things like prison rape. You don't make jokes about white women getting raped. You can't even talk about that. You can't even talk about looking at a white woman's ass without somebody calling you a rapist. So why in the hell is it funny when we talk about a Black man going to prison, who's a human being too, and him going through the trauma of being raped? That is not funny, man. That's not funny. And why can't he go to prison and occupy him? Like, let him go to school, man. Like, let him get a little GED or a diploma. Some of these guys make choices because they were never given an opportunity to make other choices. They weren't exposed to other things. So when they get back to so when they get that time when they're alone, that's when they sit down and they meet somebody maybe from the Nation of Islam or somebody who like a Malcolm X. That's when they get their Malcolm Little moment where they find out what they could have been if they hadn't been introduced to the streets so early. There's a lot of examples out there of great men who did time in prison, like my friend the Wall Street Trapper. Big Trap, I love this guy. I have so much respect and admiration for him. And he went through tremendous amounts of trauma, and now he's doing great with his life, and I'm so super proud of him. So a lot of your greatest Black men are being ruined by this prison system, and I think you need to question that system every step of the way, and don't get caught up in the nonsense that says that because somebody's guilty, um, of a crime, that they're completely irredeemable. That's not true. There are people that make mistakes all the time. Women make mistakes too. It's just seen in a different light. And I think that R. Kelly, I just, with a guy like that, I was never really supportive of people letting him off the hook back in the day. I kind of felt like the Black community is a little light on him. But now I'm also saying I'd love to see him live that next chapter of his life in a better way. Maybe now he won't be so distracted by all the nonsense. So just remember, sometimes getting everything you want can become as much of a curse as it is a blessing. Don't think that more women and more money and people telling you that you can have whatever you want is always a good thing, because sometimes it's not. Sometimes you need people that are going to tell you no. Sometimes you need people that are going to tell you to slow down. Sometimes you need situations that require you to step back and think a little bit, because a lot of y'all dudes out here chasing any old random toxic waste dump of a vagina that's out here. Every pretty girl with a big butt and a smile can get you trapped, get you put in all kinds of crazy situations, and you so stupid because you up here looking for the ass that you're not even thinking about all the different ways they can manipulate you and put you into a situation that could get you killed. Men have died this way, thousands of them. so so don't be a sucker, man. Be smarter than that. Let's outgrow that. Anyway, that's my 2 cents. Those are my thoughts. God bless Chuck D. I will say this publicly and reiterate this. I have tremendous amounts of admiration and respect for Chuck D. I think he's a smart guy. He's a great guy. He seems like an ethical guy. I don't know him super well, but I know him well enough that I can say those things. And then also with R. Kelly, I wish him and his family the best. But I never related to R. Kelly, even when he was popular. So I definitely can't relate that much more to him now. It's just something worth breaking down. All right, guys. BlackKeysToGreatness.com. That's how you can join the book club tonight. Me and Dr. Claude Anderson go at it at 8:30 p.m. Eastern. That's about an hour and 15 minutes. So you can go sign up and join us. We're going through Black labor, white wealth, so we can understand the true history of Black people and what you went through since slavery. Dr. Anderson himself is showing up. And do not forget, the All Black National Convention is happening October 29th to November 1st in Orlando. Akila Nihunda, who's one of the greatest, coolest rappers ever, is going to be there. Victory Boyd, who just passed, who was just kicked, who just had her appearance to sing the national anthem with the NFL canceled because she refused to get the jab. She's going to be there performing. She's a Rock Nation singer. She's such a great singer. Jay-Z signed her on the spot. We got a lot of other good people, Rizza Islam and Vicky Dillard and Julian Gordon, just really cool people. So I hope you guys will join us. Go take a look, allblacknationalconvention.com. We're here to solve problems. We're not here just to complain. So hit the thumbs up button on your way out. Love you, and I'll talk to you guys soon. Take care. Peace.